believe that music connects us, so we're gonna try something. This is the only time I'm gonna make you participate. I'm gonna sing a part of a line of a song, and I want you to just try to finish it if you know it. If I sing, Sweet Caroline.
Bum, bum, bum.
Okay, that was the part I was most nervous for, because I'm like, people are either gonna do it or they won't. No, I'll just do it. Or what about this song? It's me, hi,
I'm the problem, it's me.
How do you guys do it? I love that song because, yeah, hi, I am indeed always the problem, trying to be the solution these days now. Lastly, how about don't stop
Believing.
Yes, exactly. So music, the space it takes up, its energy and connection is why I'm standing here today. My name is Stephanie Seifus, and I love Coppell. My family of 4 relocated here 2.5 years ago from the West Coast and have planted roots here. Coppell is a sacred place to me, and I do everything I can to give back to the community that has given my family so much. Our family's first Christmas in Coppell in December of 2021, after living here for only 2 months, a secret Santa randomly brought my family presents. The card that they left said, "You are very loved, and I hope you decide to plant roots here in Coppell." I knew that moment that Coppell is where we will stay forever, plant roots, and call home. Using my experience, teaching private music instruction since age 16, I started planting those roots by creating a company, Brazos Creative, an arts company where we teach life skills through creative outlets, including our music program and more. Since moving to Coppell, I taught for about a year exclusively virtually, and then have been in person in our home on Phillips Drive since, with multiple rooms of my home as part of the studio. With vision to move into a business location in Coppell, growing to continue to serve. Today I will share a bit of my story, and I hope by sharing my experiences, I can help more of Coppell today. I'm going to share a few highlights, well, I mean, to be honest, they're more like lowlights of my childhood story, and how music is responsible for my creative survival. For those of you who don't know me, thank you for letting me be here to take up space. Because like, who the crap even am I? You guys don't know me. Like, who's the Stephanie Seifus Brazos, whatever I speak of? Because I am sure not a mental health professional, but I would call myself a professional sufferer if I do say so myself. My very first memory of life was a birthday party. It was my 3rd birthday party, and it was a bad birthday party, but I mean, everything looked nice and pretty and put together, especially for the 90s. We lived in a really nice house in a really nice part of Orange County, California. My parents were wealthy. My father was the vice president of an international company. They hired, do you guys, I wanna ask, do any of the younger, do you guys know who Barney the dinosaur is? Yeah? Okay, you do? Okay, I'm sorry, because he's terrifying. And they hired him, he was my favorite, I mean, to be fair, to like be a character Barney. I'm sorry, because he's low-key terrifying. And I was 3, so the memory is somewhat fuzzy, but I did do something that really wasn't right, because my dad angrily scooped me up, took me upstairs, and I remember covering my head and my face tight while he hit me over and over and called me names. He left the room, and I remember laying in my bed, afraid, hands still covering my head tightly in the dark at 3 years old. For what seemed like an eternity, that was probably only a few minutes, he came back to retrieve me to blow the candles out on my cake. And he and I would never speak of that dark first memory of my life. I wish I could say that this was the worst thing that ever happened to me and has left me haunted, because it has. And I even would go so far as to say that if this was the only abusive memory I held, it would still haunt me. But as a child, day after day, year after year, I would continue to suffer through every type of abuse imaginable. 4 years of sexual abuse by a family member, Christmas after Christmas. Every day, I endured a mostly verbally and physically abusive prison in my home. I was bullied at school. People hated me. Even the first day of preschool, I walked up to a group of girls and said hi, and they told me that I couldn't play with them and that they were going to make my life miserable. They did, but it wasn't worse than how life was at home. And people who should have protected me didn't. I confided in adults twice, once in second grade and another time at 17 years old. And they never reported. People who should have done something, who I should have been able to trust, did nothing. I'm happy that these days that type of behavior is very much unacceptable and illegal. I know that people aren't perfect, and I know that there are still things to improve in this type of system, but we have created programs like the Hope Squad and the Defensive Line, who is putting on this Art and Heart Fair today to help protect our youth and teach them how to protect each other. The Hope Squad and Defensive Line are incredible programs that I support because they promote mental health and suicide prevention education in our youth. They teach taking initiative when a peer is struggling instead of waiting for that peer to reach out. They value openness to eliminate mental health stigmas, advocate for self-care, and community. I love the Hope Squad's motto. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes an entire community to save one. Coppell is my community that has most literally lifted me up, carried me, and is a huge part of healing the little girl inside of me who needed to be saved. Programs like the Hope Squad and the Defensive Line would have been extremely beneficial in my youth. My parents were wealthy and my parents were smart, so most of the abuse I endured was verbal. It was a constant stream of criticism. I couldn't take up space or speak or move without being met with some sort of insult or critique of my existence. I would never measure up to what they expected me to be, from never being good enough to never being skinny enough or pretty enough or hardworking enough or smart enough or much more. The hardest year of my life was 6th grade, middle school. Rough for everyone, but my family had just moved to a different state, to Arizona, a few weeks before the first day of school. I walked on the bus, and in preschool-like fashion, some kids started making fun of me right then. Trembling, trying to exit the bus steps on that first day of 6th grade, honestly so afraid, I fell down. My glasses flew off my face and hit the curb, and those kids walked off the bus, stepping on me on their way like I didn't take up space and like I didn't exist. It was bad. Kids started telling me why I should just end my life and would describe to me exactly how I should do it. At home, my dad told me one day I should not have been born because I was such a disappointment and failure. He said things like this often, but this time it hit differently. At that moment, I fought back helplessly. I argued, well, you're not the only one who thinks that. I shared with him what the kids said at school, hoping for his mind to change. Sadly, he responded with, "They are right, you know, especially when you act this way." And I'll never forget this line, and I'm talking about space a lot today. "You are a literal waste of space." I was so tired and afraid, I decided to stop taking up space. As an 11-year-old child, the very next night I tried to take my own life. I would have succeeded had not an external force that I believe was God and his angels made that attempt fail. At that moment, I felt actually like I heard that voice say to me, "You have a purpose in my mind, so thank you for being mine." At that moment, I ripped up the note I had left. I threw it in the outside garbage can. And at 11 years old, I decided at that moment that I was going to choose to be alive and that I was not a waste of space. And I went to sleep and woke up and got ready for school the next day, smiled, and no one would ever know. I vowed to God I would start speaking up and have a voice. But little Stephanie got punished when she spoke up directly, so she had to find a creative way to take up space. So I wrote song after song about all of these horrible events I was enduring. I told my stories through carefully hidden metaphors. On the surface, my songs were, I would say, raging teenage love bops, when in reality, they were my way to give voice to the horrors I was experiencing. I wrote every day, and I wrote with intention. Many people told me how deep my music was, how they couldn't believe a kid my age wrote lyrics like that. Some even commended me for being able to write such, I don't know if they phrase it like this, but like meaningful, raging teenage love bops. Little did they know, these were the cries of a little girl who needed help and wished she could just directly ask. A little bit about music in me. I started playing the piano when I was 4. I picked up the violin at 8, and I begged to play the guitar starting at age 10. Also, side note, I had a crush on a boy my freshman year of high school, and so I did join the marching band for like 1 semester. I played bass drum because I had a crush on this boy who played the trombone. But like, guys, don't just join something for a boy, my younger people in here, because yikes, that one's high-key embarrassing for me. Am I doing the teen lingo okay? Probably not. So, by the time I had, horrifyingly, tried to kill myself as a child, at 11 years old, I was at least blessed to have the experience of playing instruments to supplement this desire to create music. One after another, the songs kept coming. I would play them at school, events, starting in 8th grade. In fact, I even got some opportunities to play alongside Radio Disney stars and, okay, teens, do you know this one? Do you know who Michelle Branch is? She's like in early 2000s. No? Okay, I figured. Like, I kind of wish more that you didn't know who Barney the dinosaur was, but I'm old now, so it's fine. But one day, when I was 15, my dad approached me and told me he was going to take me to a couple of recording studios and check them out so I could record all of my music, and I was so excited. We decided on a cute little studio in the heart of Cave Creek, Arizona, where I attended high school. I spent 5 months going there after school almost every day working on the recordings. We created album art, and in pre-Spotify era fashion, we printed like 1,000 copies of the CD. At 17, approaching adulthood, one day my dad aggressively approached me, angry as usual and yelling, accusing me this time of not trying harder to sell my CD. When I could finally get a word in, I asked him, what is this even about? I was confused, and I didn't understand why it was important to him for me to sell copies of my CD for profit. He told me at that moment that my family was in debt, and that because I didn't try harder to be famous and save their situation that I did not know about, they were going to lose their home. Yes, this is real. Because according to him, after all, music was the only thing I was ever good at. In his words, "You're really damn good at music, Steph, and you were our only chance." That was a confusing and rough conversation that ended in my father physically attacking me to the point that I was afraid I was going to die. I was able to escape and can still hear and feel my heartbeat and feet pounding the ground as I ran miles to get to a friend's car to get away. I wrote one last song about my parents. I called it Bones. And then, honestly, I didn't write another song until last year with a friend's encouragement. Last summer of 2023. As Olivia Rodrigo would sing, it's always 1 step forward and 3 steps back. Because at this point, I was a young adult. But I was so scared and angry at this CD I wrote that I didn't even let my own husband, who I married at 20 years old, who is my very best friend, who I've known for over a decade, listen to it until last summer. I was just hanging around in my house last June when my original music crossed my mind. That moment I realized I teach these kids in my studio every week to write music to help themselves cope, but when's the last time that I created? I paused and started to cry. I apologized to little me for hiding her voice, her space that she created. I started to write my feelings down. Last summer, I went and sat at the piano and wrote the first song I've written in well over a decade. I realized that burying that little girl was doing me much more harm than good. Because at 11 years old, she was really creative. She was really smart. She was a really good kid. She really tried, and most importantly, she was a child. I'm really proud of her, and she gets to keep coming along with me today and keep taking up space because she's safe now and she lives. And yeah, like, what 11 to 15-year-old writes lyrics as dark as those? Only one who had felt complete dark hopelessness, who was begging for someone to see through the metaphors. But I don't look back horrified anymore. Like I said, I'm impressed and proud of that little girl. I'm proud of myself for fighting creatively to be alive. Remember the external force? At 11 years old, after contemplating the weight of having just attempted to take my own life, I heard God say to me, "You have a purpose in my mind, so thank you for being mine." I wrote those words into one of the songs on that CD. And now I don't hide little Stephanie anymore. I only have like 3 physical copies left besides the boxes in my parents' garage that I will obviously not be going to get anytime soon. So I uploaded the album to streaming platforms, if you're interested in listening, that have been available since the beginning of this year. I would like to pause for a moment and play that last song I wrote at 17 called Bones. It is my favorite song that I've ever written, and it really shares how all of those years of abuse made me feel the way I don't feel like words could ever properly convey. Stuck on the thing. You will never see me staring at the newfound love you're forming. My tears are hiding behind crooked smiles as you pass by without one worry. And I don't wanna breathe, I don't wanna think, 'cause you tear out of me all my bones. And I don't wanna hear the emptiness that fills a shattered body cannot house a soul. You're taking all my bones. You've taken all my bones. You will always see me hiding as you smugly watch me dying. I try to talk my way out of your grasp, but I'm frozen in oceans of concrete. I don't wanna breathe, I don't wanna think, as you tear out of me all my bones. And I don't wanna hear the emptiness that fills would like to switch gears for a minute and talk about the type of therapy that I do to try to heal from all of this. It's called EMDR trauma therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. EMDR therapy is a mental health technique involving stimulation a certain way while you process traumatic memories. EMDR's goal is to help the patient heal from trauma or other distressing life experiences. Adolescents, teenagers, and adults can all benefit from this type of treatment. What I love the most about EMDR is that it doesn't require talking in detail about a distressing event. Rather, it focuses on changing the emotions, thoughts, or behaviors that result from distressing events, more commonly known as trauma. I actually have a friend who had a lovely upbringing and has a lovely life, but she needed help because her kids get sick, all kids get sick, and she couldn't deal with it, to the point that she was non-functional when they were sick. And EMDR therapy helped her process this to its origin point and helped her work through it, so that not only she could continue to succeed as the Wonder Woman mother that I know that she is, she's completely healed. I have post-traumatic stress disorder, which probably doesn't come as a shock to anyone listening. My father also had post-traumatic stress disorder. He was in the Army in the Vietnam War. When I was a girl, he told me a story about returning home from war. He told me he had barely been home a few weeks, was unloading groceries into his car at the store, heard someone else's car's trunk close, lost time, and finally realized he was under the car screaming incoming with his hands over his head. Fast forward, my husband, 2 kids, and I decided to start exercising together, starting Taekwondo, actually at Championship Martial Arts here in Coppell a few months ago. Even just recently, in a safe environment, while learning and practicing self-defense, I had a full-blown flashback experience, not realizing how terrifying it would be, still to this day, as a woman in her 30s, to have someone come at me. But I love how empowered that the martial arts makes me feel, so through some extra work with my therapist and with the instructor at the Martial Arts Center, I had the opportunity to keep creating ways to make sure that I can survive. I actually wonder often if my dad knows that he's done the same thing to me that the war did to him. It hurts badly. Honestly, the memories and should have beens are so dark and still scare me. I've often gone into really dark places, and recently, but I have friends back in Utah where we moved from, hearing the Coppell community band around me in this room and making sure that my family, are okay, always. I don't know why sometimes, but people choose to love me over and over and over again. And gosh, I'm so grateful for that, because I know so many of us, even in this room, who some I know well, feel so alone and think, why can't someone do something like that for me? But my friends, even a random person, multiple times, honestly, with presents at our door, a community banded around me, a lovely family and business in my home. Some days the darkness wins for a few minutes or longer, and I even think to myself that I am no one and nothing. And that's depression, anxiety, and a lie, because I have everyone and everything. I'm a 1.5 years into EMDR therapy, and I'm actually most definitely still not okay. I may look put together on the outside with leading a company, with my truly beautiful family, with so many friends, but no, guys, I'm a mess. I'm a work in progress, and that progress goes up, but it really goes down while I strive to become better. The stories I've shared today in more detail have been processed more than others, some that I'm still afraid to say out loud. My 20s were hard. My husband and I were married young. We were poor college students. I was a young wife and mother, praying and hoping that my parents would change. I was a people pleaser and would never rock the boat by doing something so bold as to say why I really was depressed, anxious, and suffering. Thank God I met my husband, Parker. He is my very best friend. We were actually engaged the very first time I had a full-blown panic attack and ended up in a mental hospital. His wonderful father actually asked him while I was in the hospital, "Are you still going to marry Stephanie?" Parker responded, "Yes. If I left her now, did I ever really love her?" His father answered, "Good. I'm glad to hear you say that, because people are going to question you and you need to be ready with your answer." Everyone needs a Parker, and I wish everyone could have a companion like him. But the only time of my life that I started really progressing and healing is not because I have someone there like Parker, but when I finally let go and started to chip away those steel walls that are so high down and actually let myself feel more than numb, angry, and annoyed. Finally letting him and others in. I continue to this day to struggle with suicidal ideations and thoughts. I hold hope that there will come a day that I am fully healed and I don't have to be haunted by negative self-talk and dark thoughts. It has gotten dramatically better and livable because, like the Hope Squad teaches, I have established self-care routines. When I first started EMDR therapy, I did not want to do anything on that list. It felt physically painful to go through the mental anguish it required to do something as simple as brush my teeth every single day. But I have seen evidence that I thrive when I do my list and that I suffer when I do not. I crave self-care now after most literally forcing myself to do it. And it honestly involves really simple things like brush my teeth, shower, practice music, listen to a talk, sing and play, be outside for at least 5 minutes, and more. Thank you to the sweet kids who are being taught and trained to take initiative in New Tech's Hope Squad. Don't ever forget that this initiative can and should also extend to yourself. Ask your friends, but also ask yourself, do I need help? Do I need to change something little, big, to help myself feel better in life moving forward? It is important that we advocate for ourselves, including for others, so that we don't reach a crisis before establishing habits that are simple, that don't just help us succeed, but to literally be alive. It's much harder in crisis. Ask me how I know. I've had the intrusive lie and dark thought creep in. I don't even have life skills myself. So how dare I show up and teach kids day in and day out how to have them? I have a growing studio now of over 30 students. I have a reason to make sure I practice life skills and that I continue to create so that I can continue to creatively survive. I have at least 3 beautiful reasons to stay: my husband and my 2 children. And I also have 30 plus more who come to my house on a weekly basis. And that doesn't even include the community of Coppell or the surrounding areas. My little family has 2 mottos. The first one is Cyphuses don't quit. The second one is Cyphuses don't keep secrets. They just kind of happened as my kids were really little, like babies. Once, Parker's father sat down and was going to tell my daughter, maybe 3 or 4 years old at the time, that he had a treat for her. And he started with something like, "Capri, come here, let me tell you a secret." And Capri immediately responded endearingly, "Oh, Papa, Cyphuses don't keep secrets." We all had a laugh because obviously the little surprise, like a piece of candy, was harmless. But secrets kill. Most literally, the image I was forced to upkeep and the lies I told to keep my parents' secrets, even as an adult, led me to almost take my life multiple times. The more I share my stories, the more free I feel from their dark chains. I hope these few stories help someone bravely tell a secret today. You don't have to get up here to do it either. Secrets have never led to anything good, and I am proud that that is my family's motto, even though I still struggle to share some of mine. But tell your secrets and take up space. I wish someone told me what I tell my children, my students, and the church choir that I lead of children ages 3 up to adults, that anyone can sing and anyone can play music. Like, don't even fight me on it, because I will win and argue it with you, any one of you, any day, anytime, about being able to sing. Scientifically, most people most literally go get master's and doctoral degrees in vocal science to be able to teach people how to use their voice to match certain pitch. It is a learned skill, like tying your shoes or hitting a baseball. And guys, even if you think your voice doesn't sound pleasing, you can sing, and you are capable of singing. More about that, but first, moving your body is so important for self-care. But what about moving your mind? What about singing in the shower and in the car, joining the Coppell Community Chorale, or in the privacy of your own home, singing and playing along to some simple chords? What is stopping you from opening your mouth, singing your song, and creating to help your mind be well? It was hard for me to accept I wasn't the best at music because I was told day in and day out that it was the only thing I was good at. My world completely shattered my first day of university when I walked into my first music class and realized I was not all that and a bag of chips. But when I recently started healing these wounds, I became someone who matters. When I realized that I've always been someone who matters. Nothing is the best. I don't believe anyone's the best, because it's all subjective. Stop believing the lie that you have to be the best to try something new, to open your mouth, and to sing. The value of our creativity lies in how it affects you and me individually, not how it affects others. May I please ask you a question? Did you know that you matter? If you don't, I'm sorry, because I've been there and it's a horribly dark place to be. It's so alone. Please stay. I think you matter. Come up to me after this and give me a hug and let me remind you that the space you take up in this world is a beautiful thing. Remember that you have always been someone who matters. Your value is divine and immeasurable. However you believe you were created, there was a creation, we're here, and a creator, and you are unique and beautiful, from the color of your skin to the number of hairs on your head and the thoughts inside of it. The sound of your voice is a beautiful sound. It's a song also that is meant to take up space here in this world. Your tones when you speak are most literally able to be transcribed. Your vibrations, your energy, and your sound, their purpose is to take up space and to have an effect on those around you. I will dare to go further and to say that your frequency of sound has purpose and worth. However perceived, your song, every single person in this room was created to exist, and you are meant to be here. So please create light and love forever in the story of our friendship and connection. Because we were created to create, and we were created to connect, and we were created to be a community. And I am honestly privileged and so happy. My heart is full that I can call the city of Coppell mine. I want to close by saying that I think it's awesome This is the first time I've ever shared like this out loud publicly about my experiences as a little girl and teenager. She was hopeful healing would happen, opening her CD with the words, "I want to play in coffee shops, maybe change the world." And it sows shut more of my wounded heart that my voice is being heard at an event for kids and teenagers in my favorite city in the world, advocating for wellness through art and music, my business, and honestly my life's mission. I wish someone had talked to me like this when I was a kid. Then maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't have had to suffer. But I did suffer, and it sucked. But I am healing, and I creatively survived. I am so glad that my life has been saved time and time again. I think I really am meant to be here. I know I am loved. I know that people need me, and it's a really great life. But not everyone who attempts is so lucky. Suicide, depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all mental conditions and neurodivergence is true and real. You must learn to be empathetic, or if not, to know exactly how to respond to symptoms of suffering. I know there's got to be someone in this room who has been touched by suicide, and there is a hole that will never be filled because of it, and for that, I'm really sorry. These conditions are stigmatized, and these conditions look different depending on who you are. My depression looks like a person who you've never met today, speaking in front of you about singing your song, a woman who's smiling and putting on a presentation, but crying on the inside, and you'd never know. My depression has also looked like 20 hours plus a day of sleeping, frozen in anxiety and fear. I'm glad I creatively survived. Last month, I attended the closing show of 9 to 5 that Coppell High School put on. Absolutely mesmerized, watching and listening to the first group musical number in absolute awe. I had a thought, gosh, I'm so happy to be here right now. I immediately was overwhelmed because I realized that this subconscious, involuntary thought wasn't just implying the joy I felt sitting there in that theater. No, I meant I'm happy I'm here right now, alive. I loved watching those talented youth, some of the most talented I've ever seen, take up all the space on that stage in Coppell. Through the end of the play, I had a constant stream of tears, like right now, pouring down my face because I was overwhelmed with the feeling of joy, and that it was accompanied by theater, dancing, music, and creativity. I hope these stories help you have the bravery to creatively take initiative, to smile and to sing your song. As little Stephanie sang in my song Willow Tree, I know I'll be fine after everything, eventually. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to take up space here, to serve you, and to share my story today of how I used music to creatively survive.